Okay. Yeah, I jumped in on a few and I watched one on YouTube Live, I think. Okay. That sounds good. Okay, cool. No problem. Let's see. Let's share. Okay. Can you see my presentation, my PowerPoint presentation? Yeah, okay, I see it. It's live there. Wait, actually, one sec, having some technical issues here. Sec. Okay. There we go. Okay, cool. So my name is Max Litvinov, and this is Great Expectations, breaking into the modern video game industry. So there was a point where I aspired to be a game developer, specifically a game engineer or game programmer. And this talk follows parts of my journey along the way to getting a position in the industry, as well as real world resources that I used along the way, and a few case studies for some uh, specific examples. So yeah, the structure of this talk, we'll go through my background, some of the stuff I've worked on, where I went to school, what I think are essentials for breaking into the industry, hard resources like books, websites, portfolio generators, anything that I used, and we will go through three case studies of examples that I have seen um, of myself in interviews or other people breaking into the industry with this advice. So, background. So, I was previously a computer science student at North Carolina State University. I previously worked in interactive media and serious games before I got my first game industry position in 2017 with Jam City. That is a mobile game studio in California. I worked in the San Diego office, and currently I work for Red Storm Entertainment in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is a division of Ubisoft. So I've had the privilege of working on a lot of fun games. I've previously worked on Cookie Jam Blast. That was at Jam City. Ubisoft Massive's Avatar project, Starlink Battle for Atlas, and currently I work on the Assassin's Creed VR game. Okay, essentials. So the first thing I want to talk about is essentials for students. One thing that I found very helpful for me was taking advantage of special topics courses. At North Carolina State, specifically for our computer science department, we had a few special topics courses that I took advantage of, like game design or game projects. So be on the lookout for maybe niche classes that aren't always offered in your typical computer science curriculum. But classes like Learning Unity or something like that that can be related to game dev. Another thing is be on the lookout for internship programs. I know a lot of like Ubisoft, Blizzard, Epic. They offer graduate programs and internship programs for all disciplines. One thing to note is this talk is for all disciplines, but it will be slightly engineering focused just because that's my background and that's my experience interviewing. Another thing to take advantage is look for game development clubs at your university. I know NC State had game development clubs where you could get together after like normal class hours and work on games together, have fun. Okay, this one's interesting. So this was my resume the last time I updated it before I interviewed with Red Storm. And I've gotten some feedback that this is very unique, and I've really only received good feedback from this resume. You can note that it's a little different from a typical, I want to say cookie cutter resume, but you can see that it's very clean. It has a format. It actually has my picture and it has icons, and it's very easy to navigate. Now, I actually did not make this myself, and this is another recommendation that I have is this is made in Photoshop. Have one of your, if you're, not very art savvy, or don't know how to use Photoshop, have one of your friends who's an artist or designer actually design their resume for you. So I'm going to go through a few other examples of what I think are good resumes. And I've actually had Lucian, a hiring manager at Red Storm, give me a comment on how he still remembers my resume to this day because of how it looks compared to other resumes. So this is a colleague that I work with, James Tiller. I've worked with him on 3 projects. So his I really like because he worked on Madden, and he has like that picture of Antonio Brown on the cover of Madden. He worked on Virtual Patient Trainer game. He has a picture there. He cuts half his resume in blue, half of it in red. So otherwise, it's pretty similar to mine. One thing to note is the ratings he has for proficiency and skills. I've read that that's not a good thing to do, but I used to have that on my resume, and I've gotten many interviews even with rating, how good James is at C++ or Unreal. So here's another one I like that I found on LinkedIn. It actually is inspired by Blizzard's Overwatch game. You can see the UI is very similar to like how you would view a hero or your KD in like in the game Overwatch. Okay, so this is probably the most important slide on this presentation, is to basically make a video game in your spare time. Make really anything, make mods. I recommend using Unity 3D or Unreal because those are the main commercial game engines in the industry today. YouTube is a great source for tutorials on any of these. And what I have done in the past is I have made a game using Unity, and I have published it using their WebGL build on my personal webpage, which I'll get to in a little bit. And I actually, during my interview, this was at Jam City when I interviewed with them, I pulled up the browser and played the game that I made in Unity. And that shows that you want to learn, and you like making your own games and working on your own projects. You will learn so much. And if you don't know how to do something, go through it step by step. Like, I don't know how to make a laser gun or put a laser on a rifle, but I know there's thousands of YouTube videos about how to do that in Unity, for example, and just go step by step. So this is my online portfolio. The last time I edited it. Now it's very plain, but I think the best thing about it is it gets to the point. And I've had feedback. One time I interviewed with Amazon Game Studios, and their hiring manager told me they liked my portfolio because it was very easy to navigate. I basically have, okay, here's about me, here's my resume, and here's a grid of projects I've worked on. And on here, I have linked builds to games, as well as a web page to like a web game that I've made, as well as games like you can see Cookie Jam Blast that's on the mobile or the Google Play Store, the iOS Store, and a link to download that as well. Okay, source control. Source control is basically the management of changes and revisions, code, assets for your project. Now, source control is very important for game development and all games because it keeps a revision history and basically the container for your project. One thing here is I believe that all disciplines need to know source control. And I know specifically at Red Storm, everyone has a like on the project I work on, an account to Perforce and the ability to submit your changes and compare changes and merge changes. This is source control, Git, Perforce are good for use with large teams, and a lot of games have large teams. Another thing for programmers is to publish your code or your game in general on GitHub. I've been in the middle of interviews or been on the other side of interviews where we've actually looked at code for someone I've been interviewing that's been on their GitHub page. Game jams. I think game jams are a great tool to meet other people in the industry. Game jams are basically a hackathon for video games. You spend 48 hours working with a team trying to make a game as quickly as possible. The best thing about this is you'll meet a lot of industry professionals because a lot of game jams are hosted by studios. You'll quickly create a new game, work with a team, you'll learn a lot, and you'll actually be able to you'll have a new game that you made on your resume, and you can publish that online, publish that on your GitHub, or even continue working on it and tweaking it after. Okay, so here is a fun slide that is very important and sometimes overlooked. It is very important to play video games and diversify your gaming portfolio. Now, what I mean about that is playing different type of games. Like if you play first-person shooters, maybe try a third-person game as your next RPG that you want to play. If you're playing mobile, maybe try PC or try multiplayer. One thing about this is I've always been asked, what games are you playing? And a question that has been asked to me many times is give an example of a gameplay feature and how you would improve this feature if you can work on it. And another question that I always ask is, what game are you playing? And if you were on that game team, what feature would you like to work on? And that just shows general industry knowledge and passion for games. And having worked in the industry for a while, I can say that it will make you a better developer, artist, really any discipline, knowing your competitors. And we compare and contrast games every single day. Like, hey, this feature should look somewhat similar to a very similar feature from this game. Okay, so we're going to go through some resources. So portfolio creators, I definitely, it's best to use a built-in portfolio creator. I use WordPress. It's hosted by GoDaddy. It's very simple to create your portfolio online. It's very cheap. I know some other really good ones, Behance, Carbon-Made, and Adobe Portfolio is another really good one. Okay, so we're going to get into a little bit of engineering stuff. This is a book I've read actually multiple times. It's called Game Programming Patterns by Robert Nystrom. It's available online for free. I have a hard copy. It's basically architecture for video games, and it describes a lot of practical concepts that I, as a programmer, use every day. Some important concepts are like a state machine pattern, the game loop pattern, Type object, event queue, optimization patterns like spatial partition. I recommend this book. It is a very good read. This one's probably my favorite. It's called Game Programming Algorithms and Techniques by Sanjay Madhav. He, I think, worked on Medal of Honor before being a professor at USC. He actually has a wide range of books. He has this one on C++, and one about multiplayer game programming. Now, this one is platform agnostic, which means it's an older book, but the techniques used in it are relevant every day. And it's also very valid for non-programmers. Even though it says game programming patterns, you can learn a lot from this book, even if you know nothing about programming. So some things in here that it covers that I know are important are networking, linear algebra, cameras, input, lighting, and AI. This is the next book, Level Up, The Guide to Great Video Game Design by Scott Rogers. Scott Rogers, I believe, worked on God of War. It has a wide range of game design concepts. It's great for any video game professional. If you're wondering how in the world are video games designed, Scott will take you through his mind and go through basically an entire circle of just game design and really cover many aspects of it. I recommend this book for anyone, even if you don't want to get into the game industry, but are want to learn about the game industry. This is a great book. Insights. So insights are you want to know about a company, maybe interview questions, reviews, salaries, what other people's experience were interviewing. I found that Glassdoor is a really good resource for this. So you can see in the picture there's an example of someone who interviewed for a senior technical artist at Bungie. So if you are about to have an interview with Riot and you want to see why or what kind of interview questions they've asked developers in the past, you might get some good insight from Glassdoor. So one tool that I used when I was preparing for interviews was practicing programming problems using a website called HackerRank, which is free. So it's basically practice programming interview questions. It has an easy interface. It has step-by-step videos on how to solve the problems if you're stuck. And it has each section has a performance and complexity, big O. I know that's important for programming interviews. It has that section. One thing about this is it's good to practice here, not to memorize the answers, but to get your mind in a good critical thinking mindset before interviews. It'll help with future programming questions that you are potentially asked. Here's an example of the actual interface. You'll see there's code. It has a bunch of test cases as well as input. I think it's very pleasing to look at and easy to work with. And they'll actually gamify it a little bit and give you scores and badges for how well you do on certain problems, as well as easy, medium, hard difficulties for each problem. Okay, online coursework. So outside of attending college or whatnot, you can find courses online at Udemy. And Udemy is a great online learning platform. It has many programming courses on C++ and C# relating to the Unity and Unreal Engine 4 game engines, as well as art courses or really any type of courses. I've personally done, I didn't know anything about Unreal, and I did a multiplayer Unreal tutorial from somebody from Epic Games. And I thought it was great. It gives you a step-by-step instructions, as well as quizzes, and it'll like pause the video for you to work on the problem yourself, and then the problem will be solved, and you'll get a certificate of completion for completing it. So now we are going to go through 3 case studies, 3 examples of things I have seen personally or seen others do to help break into the game industry. So case study one, about 5 years ago, I interviewed with Nickelodeon in Glendale, California, and they asked me, design the quest system architecture for one of your favorite games. They said, what are you playing right now? And at the time I was playing Deus Ex Mankind Divided. And I went through how I would design the quest system architecture from a high level on this game. So actually, one thing that helped me with this programming problem was the event queue in game programming patterns. I remembered reading the game programming patterns book and referencing some because that book is all about architecture. So that specific architecture example in that book helped me with this interview problem. And I had a history of playing the Deus Ex franchise. I chose a game I knew really well, which ultimately helped me work through the problem because I knew the quest system very well. And I had worked on HackerRank to refresh my problem-solving skills, which also helped with this programming question. Case study number 2, game jam recruiting. So an example of how to network at a game jam. I attended the San Diego IGDA game jam in San Diego, which Jam City hosted, and I worked with a guy named Peter Tillman, who really wanted a QA role at Jam City. We worked together for 48 hours. He worked, did some testing, wrote some test cases for the small game that we worked on during the game jam, and I got to know him really well. I knew exactly what it was like working with him. I ended up referring him for a QC QA role at Jam City, and he got the role. And he got the role because he attended the game jam. We worked together, and we had a fun time making games, and he got a new career out of it. And none of that, he wouldn't have met me. He might have not worked for Jam City if he didn't attend the game jam, get a connection, get a new game on his resume, and just meeting industry professionals. So yeah, so he attended the game jam, he networked, he had an ability to demo a game that he worked on, and we published our game online and had a GitHub repo of it, which helped. So I'm sure at his interview, he pulled that game up and talked about QC QA techniques that he did for this game jam game. Case study number 3, talking about a gameplay feature that you are proud of. So a big question I get is talk about a gameplay feature that you worked on that you are proud of, or that was very difficult and you had to go through them hurdles or solve a problem. So in multiple instances, in my Jam City interview, I pulled up a web browser game that I had made in Unity and played it at the interview and discussed how, from a technical standpoint, how I worked on this game and the game design, the engineering, all aspects about it. So fast forward to my interview with Redstorm, I brought up a feature in a game I worked on, Cookie Jam Blast, where I built a game mode for one of the levels, and I actually pulled up a YouTube video of a random guy that I did not know playing that level. And I talked about, I believe I used like a linked list, like talked about some technical aspects about it, but having the video up on YouTube was cool because you put, a video to what you are talking about, showing the features that you have worked on. So yeah, so more about this. It's important to have game projects on your portfolio. You will be talking about them in your interviews. If these games are online, make sure they are playable, and if not playable, have screenshots or definitely have a video available. and be prepared to discuss the technical aspects of this game, as well as things that you worked on in the game and why you're proud of it and what made this difficult, if that comes up as well. So yeah, thank you. Now I am, I guess, ready for questions. Let's see. I guess I'll just go through the ones that have already been posted here. What school did you attend? I attended North Carolina State University.
Excuse me, I think that's actually more for that.
Sorry?
I'm really sorry about that. I think that was the question that was directed to me, actually.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
My bad. I was told in the last talk to not have headshots. These resumes look neat, though. Do they not get distracting? I think you can hear it both ways. I think I am a supporter of a headshot because you put a face to a name, and I've had no negative feedback from my resume from having a headshot. But that also depends on really who is looking at your resume. If you feel that it's not, you don't want to do that, then don't do it. But I think it's okay to have a headshot. And I know resumes that I've looked at, I think it is cool to have a headshot on the portfolio. I need to know how to actually publish something to GitHub. I tried once, but could not figure it out. So I think a good solution for that would be I can actually post it on here. Let's see. Starting a new Git repository. Here's a really good link that I have found. Can I reply to? Yeah, okay. Posting a link there. I think that this is a really good tutorial. I don't believe it's from their page, but it's a very simple. Okay, here's how you can publish something. Let's see, where was I? Okay, as a programmer, what is the most important or valuable thing to learn how to do to program? So that's a good question. There's probably a lot of answers for that question, and I think personally, for me, is you need to you'll be asked as a game developer.
Get your clothes together, all your dirty stuff home. Okay. All your uniforms, everything.
So I think someone is unmuted. Okay, there we go. So I think that an important way to look at programming is, especially with game development, is to break down a feature or a task into small steps. And I think that is probably the most valuable thing as a programmer. So sometimes you'll get a feature that you'll need to program, and you can't think of it as, because this happens every day. I'll say, I have no idea how to even go about that. But you have to take it step by step. You have to start with, okay, I know I need to work in this system, so I need to ask this person. Or, I don't know how to program this algorithm. Maybe I can look it up online. But I think definitely breaking down problems into smaller problems, I think is very valuable to gameplay programming or game programming or just in general programming. Okay. Do you have any contact info, or are you open to LinkedIn? Yes, I will copy and paste my LinkedIn. Okay. Any recommendations as a programmer for what you should put on your resume? I would definitely put projects that you have spent a significant amount of time on. I would put what programming language these projects were developed with, and what contributions you had on those projects. Besides that, if you attended a university, I would put your university. If you're fresh out of school, I would put what relevant courses you took at this university. And I also think it's important to put extracurricular activities. I think they'll like highlight you as more than just a programmer. Like if you're in a soccer club or you played volleyball in college, something like that. I think it's important. It's also important to put on your resume. As a definitely not a programmer, would you recommend trying to familiarize myself with or learn different languages? I think that is important, but it's always good as a programmer to learn multiple languages, because I think it makes you a better engineer or a better programmer in general, because it'll help train your mind think in different ways. But if I were interviewing with a game studio, I would definitely focus on C++ and C#. Would it be a good idea to show that you are working with new software? For example, I was highly considering to look into Unreal's MetaHuman and seeing what I could create and potentially put on my portfolio. Yeah, first off, I've seen videos of that, and it looks very cool. Yeah, I think that working with new software like Unreal's MetaHuman, especially if you were going to interview with Epic or someone that's using Unreal, is a very good idea, because it'll show that you're willing to take the initiative to learn something completely new, especially when there probably aren't that many tutorials on it out right now. What should a tech artist put on a resume? So I think that it's very similar to a programmer. Basically, projects that you've worked on. I mean, really, it's almost the same as what I would put for a programmer. Projects you've worked on, what you've contributed to those projects, and then instead of programming languages, describe, I guess, tech. What, substance painter or shaders or anything, shader languages or anything related to tech art that you worked on. Let's see. Have you ever done a game jam that included someone doing narrative? I tried to join a game jam to add to my portfolio, but it seemed most teams don't want or need a narrative role. I would say that's definitely a little bit or a little more niche for a game jam, but I know that there's something called the Global Game Jam, which you can go on and you can say, hey, I'm someone who's doing narrative and I want to contribute to a project in a narrative sense. And then people can look, like there's so many people that are in that game jam that they'll probably reach out to you because they need help with narrative ideas for their game. So I would say definitely look at online forums for that game jam and post in those forums to say, hey, I want to work with a group and I have a specialty in narrative. Would anyone like to work with me? Or find some friends that you can collaborate with going into the game jam. I have previously negative experiences with people trying to explain GitHub repositories to me, and as a result, I haven't uploaded any of my projects to GitHub during my years as an undergrad and as a graduate student. I've been working on 2 Unity projects that have since had multiple builds, but I haven't uploaded them to any Git program for the reasons mentioned above. Are project builds usually uploaded to GitHub repositories? Can I upload each build as well, or do I have to upload the Unity projects themselves? Sorry if this message seems confusing. Yeah, I would say that basically you basically create your project, and the Git project is in your Unity project. So each time you update, each time you make changes in Unity to the code or assets or whatever, your game will, or your repo will update, and you need to learn how to basically commit your changes to the cloud so that it'll be saved, and if you want someone to view it, they can view it. Now, in terms of project builds uploaded to GitHub, I think there's a way where you can link builds through your GitHub, but I'm not sure. What I do on my personal page is just what I've done in the past is make a build with Unity and zip up the file and put that file in my Google Drive and make it public, and then put a link on my webpage so that someone can easily just download the executable. Let's see.
I actually had a question earlier
Yes.
about the story about the game jam.
Yes.
It was basically did he ask you for a referral, or you?
Yes,
you
he
it
did.
because-
He did.
okay.
He at the end of it, he told me that he was looking for roles, and I got his his contact information, and I gave it to HR as a referral. But yeah, I would say definitely at the end of the game jam, if you're working directly with an industry professional, definitely that's a good time to talk about that you're looking to get into the game industry. But yes, definitely say, hey, I am looking for roles, and this company would be somewhere where I would like to see myself. Yeah, it could be hard to get through that social hurdle, but I think what helps is it is a game jam, so you're going to have 48 hours where you're going to connect with different people. Like Peter and I, we didn't know each other at the beginning, and we connected, so we were more like friends after the 48 hours. So it was a lot easier for him to ask a question like that to me. And yes, think of this as your first few days on a new job, for sure. Would Python or Ruby be useful languages to learn for programming? I don't know too much about Ruby, but I know Python is used in a lot of machine learning. I learned a little bit of Python at my first role with Jam City. That's really all I can say. Python is definitely used in game development, but from my personal experience, I would lean more towards C++ or C#. Is it better to learn C# or C++ for game development in Unity or Unreal? That is a really good question, and that's a question that's asked all over the place, really, in online or in talks. The answer to that is it really depends on where you are interviewing. If you're interviewing for a company that you know uses Unity and only Unity, or Unreal and only Unreal, it's definitely better to learn that engine that they are working with, or you could even morph your resume so that it's more appealing to hiring managers at that company. Now, as a general sense, if you were to ask me at Red Storm or at Ubisoft or AAA game developers, would it be better for C++ and Unreal or C# and Unity. I would say C++ and Unreal, because C++, I believe, is generally used at most large AAA studios on large projects for a good amount of reasons. If someone isn't good at programming, what other skills could they learn to become more valuable to the development team? Yes, so engineers are not the only, or programmers are not the only discipline that works on a game project. There's narrative, there's writing, storytelling, there's audio. Also, there's audio programming, there's composing, there's concept art, there's prop artists, there's QC, QA testing. There's a massive amount of disciplines. And definitely, if you're going to work at a larger studio, you definitely want to hone in on a certain skill. Like if I were applying to a smaller studio, I might do some tech art, I might do some gameplay programming. But while I work at a large studio now, I do really only gameplay programming. But yeah, just because you don't know programming doesn't mean you're not valuable to a development team. There's a wide range, and that includes things like game design, economy design, high-level game design, character design, first-person shooter design. So there's really unlimited career paths for game development. I heard you mention audio programming. What is that, and how is it different from regular audio developing? I believe you mean audio developing as in creating the music. Audio programming means you work on basically when to play sound effects in games, when to play background music. You'll probably work on things like audio. You'll work on algorithms like making sure the same audio event doesn't play at the same time, or making sure if 5 audio events are fired from 5 NPCs around you that it only plays 1. So really it's a programmer role, but you'll focus very closely on audio, and you may even work on the audio engine as well, or the audio system, where you could have a gameplay programmer working on a feature where when he, like, say he's working on a first-person shooter and he fires his gun, you'll give him a function to use to pass in some sort of event for that weapon. But you actually made the entire audio system that actually plays the audio. As someone who is experienced in the industry, what is something that entry-level designers should look out or be aware of? That's a good question. I think a good thing for entry-level designers is to play a lot of games, as well as put games that you have designed or games that you have worked on your portfolio. I would team up with a few of your friends, or on a personal project, and be like a dedicated game designer on that project, so that you can show that project off to employers or hiring managers. I think that there's a lot of places you can go with game design. You could play a game in its entirety and write a blog about what you would want to change about that game, or what game mechanics interest you, or completely come up with a game idea by yourself and make a game design document that you have online that others can see. There's really a wide range of things you can do. Also, as a game designer, a really good thing to use is making a project with blueprints. Like if you don't want to touch programming, with blueprints in Unreal Engine, because then you don't have to touch programming, but you can also make a game using a visual scripting language. How do you gain the skills necessary for being a game designer? Is there a special resume for game designers? Well, yeah. So game designer is, a very interesting role. There's definitely not a special resume for game designers. You would basically say games that you have worked on in the past and what game mechanics you have designed for these games. And I know as a game designer, it's also good to get into the technical aspects of making a game. So, like I said before, maybe download Unreal and mess with the blueprint system and make your own small game by yourself. And I think that would go a long way for game designers. If you're interviewing for a company and they would like to know what your hobbies are via a conversation or resume, would there be a certain things you shouldn't mention, or should you lay all things your interests that come to mind, despite some of them being niche or just casual? Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have a list of like 15 things. I would maybe have 3 or 4 things that you're definitely the most proud of. Something that maybe not related to game development, but something that's related to, like maybe a game development club, or like a sport, or hey, I also like to build bikes in my spare time. It just shows that, you have interests in other things, and it'll show the person interviewing you more about yourself other than your raw skills or what games you've worked on. I know specifically, I used to swim competitively, and I put that I used to swim in my resume. Okay. Okay. Also, one thing. Oh, yeah. One thing I do want to mention, if you can still see, are my slides still showing? Okay. Do you see the red? Yeah. Okay. Red Storm is hiring. We do have quite a bit of roles we are hiring for. If you're interested, the Q&A. Okay, let me try sharing again. That's strange. Yeah, it's weird because my PowerPoint says that. That's weird. My PowerPoint says that I am on a different page.
I briefly saw it. I briefly saw the screen though, but you immediately changed back though.
Okay, I can just post the link here. Yeah. Oh, jeez. That's strange. Well, I know I'm giving this talk again tomorrow, so now I'll get all the kinks out right now, right? Yeah, so we are hiring for a lot of positions at Red Storm. If you're interested in one of these roles, definitely you can message me on Discord or message me on LinkedIn, and could potentially get you in contact with Jessica Hook or someone from HR. Okay, I'll answer another question since I have a minute. Is graphic design relevant to the video game industry? On my website portfolio, I've listed that I've been a graphic designer for 6+ years. In addition to 4 years of working on video games, so my portfolio, I have a section that shows some of my graphic design work as well as contracted work in addition to my game design work. Yeah, I would say that it's definitely relevant. Depending on what you want to do. If you want to do more art or UI design, or more on the graphics end, I would definitely keep it on there. But if you want a programming role, maybe if you leave it off for other things. But I think it's definitely relevant. Yeah. Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, Ken, thank
Goodbye.
you. It's great to be a part of this virtual experience with ECGC. I was it was sad that last year got canceled, and I'm glad we were able to continue with the conference this year.